Okay, let's have some fun. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. We thank you all for joining in. Today, we're really excited. We're going to have Dr. Brian Clement on the show. Really excited to have him on. It's an amazing day here in Southern California. It's about 75 degrees and sunny in the middle of December. It's such an amazing thing. And so I hope you're having a great day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are today. I hope life is treating you well and you're having a good Christmas season. Again, thank you for joining us. And we are broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. So thank you again for taking time out of your day. We are doing shows 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the moment. And if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, feel free, extremehealthradio.com/Facebook. And thank you to Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. That's an honor and a privilege to be on there. Today is Monday, December 10th, 2012, the day after my birthday. That was a fun day yesterday, and this is episode number 46. So you can find the show notes, and any reference materials at extremehealthradio.com/46. And if you have any questions for our guest, Dr. Brian Clement, you can email them to me at justin@extremehealthradio.com or call us at 949-391-7363, and I'll play your message to our guest. And this show is brought to you by Mountain Rose Herbs, one of my favorite places to buy bulk herbs at really great prices online. You can check them out at extremehealthradio.com/mountain. And before I introduce Dr. Clement, I will just tell you about our upcoming show schedule. On Wednesday, we've got Dr. David Christopher, who runs the School of Natural Healing. He's an herbalist, and that's been around since 1953, I think. And then we've got Professor Ron Kusan on Friday doing a lot of work with minerals and the ocean and things like that. Then we've got herbalist Elwyn Robinson from the UK next Monday. So join us for those shows. Those are going to be really great shows. Today we've got Dr. Brian Clement, and he's spent the last 4 decades studying nutrition and natural health care. He's received graduate degrees in naturopathic medicine and nutritional science. He's an author, a lecturer. He runs the Hippocrates Health Institute, and he's doing amazing work helping people heal from the incurables. So thank you, Dr. Clement, for being on the show today. Appreciate that.
Well, it's nice to be on there with you, and happy birthday, belated happy birthday.
Thank you. It was a great day. We're honored. So, yeah, thank you for being on. And so you've been at this for about 40 years.
Yeah, it seems like time goes fast, as the old guys and gals listening know, and I began this as a big fat American, and I was fat well before it was in style. I was an enigma at that stage, and was fortunate enough to meet this character who was a plant-based diet eater. And I thought he was the weirdest person I'd ever met. I didn't know how a man could survive and preserve his masculinity without slaughtering animals and drinking their milk. And slowly but surely, he persuaded my girlfriend at the time and myself to adapt this lifestyle, and I never looked back. Lost 120 pounds, gave up 3 packs of cigarettes a day and smoking grass daily, and became a much more kinder, gentler character at that stage.
Wow. And then how long after that did it take for you to get into the Hippocrates lifestyle?
Well, I'll tell you, that was interesting. I worked my way through university, and wisely, my father didn't give me a free meal ticket. He said, if you want to go to school, you've got to do, work and partially pay for that. And I was sort of burnt out because I would work all night and go to school all day, and took a sabbatical and moved to the state of Oregon. And where I lived in Oregon, it wasn't rainy and cool. In southern Oregon, a little inland, it was hot and 100 degrees every day from May 1st until October. And I just gravitated to eat a raw food diet. Now, I wasn't one of those lucky ones that read the books and followed the plan. And noticed that by the 3rd month, hey, look it, I'm not eating cooked food here. And recalled reading Dr. Ann Wigmore's book, Be Your Own Doctor, and went to visit her with no intent. I was actually on my way to create a center on the Oregon coast, a more naturalistic and, vegan-based center. And she asked me to come and join the staff in 1975. And I did so, and by 1980, when I came back from 3 years in Europe, where I brought the raw food message back and helped to develop centers there, et cetera, in Switzerland, and ran centers in Denmark, they asked me to direct Hippocrates. So for 32 years now, I've been directing Hippocrates and embracing and living this lifestyle.
Golly, that's so amazing. So what kind of things do you see for people that come there? I mean, a lot of people go there, they have real big health issues and crises they're dealing with. What are some of the things that you see as the common characteristics for people that heal versus people that don't?
I'll give you a backdrop of who comes here. And when I first joined the staff, it was pretty much almost 100% of people were catastrophically ill. They would have had to been told to have a day, little liver, 2 days. They say, okay, I'll take it to Hippocrates. Now it's about half and half. We call them the serious health seekers come here. So people who want to preserve their life, people who don't want to get sick, like their moms and dads and friends and family members. And the other half are still catastrophically ill or have some kind of a problem. Now, to answer your question, the most important thing we do at Hippocrates is not with food, although that's what we're known for, bringing wheatgrass and raw food back to the world. It is really attitude. And so everyone that comes here gets work done with gifted psychotherapists. Not that you sit in a room with a Freudian and Jungian guy who tells you all your problems. We have people that want to get you completely positive as short a time as we possibly can. So it's attitude. And I can pretty much tell you who's going to heal themselves and who's not going to heal themselves within a few minutes after talking to them. If they sit around and tell me about someday they hope and they dream they can get better, they're not going to make it. If someday they give me the date that they're going to get better and what tools they're going to be using in the process, guess what? They're the ones who are going to do so.
Wow. So do you find that people that come there that are very, very sick, do many of them have really negative attitudes?
There's not a person who's sick that doesn't have a negative attitude. Negative attitudes are the number one cause in all diseases. And of course, when we have a negative view of ourselves and we loathe our life, then we don't eat right and we don't exercise and we're negative and we're angry and we're hostile and we're always condemning other people and pointing fingers. And so, you just go into this vicious spiral until some disease, thank God, arrives to wake you up. And the more intelligent and kind people are awakened and the other ones die. I mean, I think the survival of the fittest works beautifully. It really does. And disease is not here to kill us, even catastrophic disease. It's here to awaken us. And if you have a catastrophic disease, you must have really been brain dead. You must have really needed a punch in the back of the head, as I said.
So do you find, it seems like it would be more difficult or more challenging, I should say, to change someone's perception, their mindset, their attitude, than it would be even to bring someone back from cancer?
Well, it is. I mean, I think that they're synonymous. I don't think it's different. If a person values her life or his life, that they're going to do what it takes to raise it up to the standard that they aspire to. If a person, feels hopeless and lost and confused and everyone's been sick and they listen to these idiot physicians say it's genetic and, everyone's been sick like this in your family, it sort of becomes a self-realizing prophecy. Where on the other hand, if people say when they get sick, and sickness is there to provoke you back to life, by the way, I have a purpose, I have a reason. And they're willing at that point, and I see it on a daily basis for more than 4 decades, is people who have had catastrophically horrible lifestyles, who recognize that they're now ill and they may lose life, are quite often the easiest people to transform. Sometimes when you have a minor concern, or you're just dabbling, as I say, with raising your awareness, it's not as urgent. So we don't get the kind of results as we do with people who are against the wall with the guns loaded and ready to be fired at them. And those people are able to make transformations pretty damn quick when they have self-respect.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think there's something going on at the cellular level? Because I think of, when you talk about attitude like you are, I think of Dr. Masaru Emoto's work with the messages of water, I think it's called, his books, and how the water, the structure of the water changes. When someone's happy and they're vibrant and they're alive and they come to your place with some kind of cancer or whatever their disease is, and they have that good attitude, is their cellular makeup changing because of their attitude?
Absolutely. I mean, that's, we're very comprehensive. We have a medical team here. This is not hairy-fairy New Age business. Mm-hmm. We're the hospital of the future. And so we use cutting-edge technology that we bring in from all over the civilized world, electromagnetic, cold laser, cyber scans, undermed, H-wave, biofrequency units. Everything that is state-of-the-art is here as part of Hippocrates' program. Now, not too many people come here optimistic and happy who have a catastrophic disease, mm-hmm. but it's our foremost objective to get them to the place where they find their passion again. And this works in the vast majority of situations, by the way. And what we do know is through the evaluation of cells, through these highly sophisticated units like Undermed and CyberScan, that's what we're actually evaluating. And the better story is not Emoto's work out of Japan, but it's a story from Dr. Carl Simonton. And Dr. Simonton was a very conservative oncologist here in the United States back in the 50s and 60s, and started to recognize that practically everyone he treated medically for cancer died. And today the statistics are still well over 90% of people who take the medical treatment will eventually succumb to cancer. He at least admitted this. And recognized that the handful of people that superseded even and endured what treatments he gave them, chemo, radiation, etc., that devastated their immune system, were these like childlike optimistic people, and was bright enough and open enough and compassionate enough to say, listen, let me evaluate what happens with the mind, and became the #1 advocate in history of how attitude changes immunity. Dr. Carl Simonton, Getting Well Now, was one of his great books. Now, it happens to be that I got to know Carl Simonton late in his life, and he was always one of my great heroes, but his partner of 25 years, business partner, who was at his side globally, and went out and did programs with only stage 4 diseases. They wouldn't work with anyone unless they were given up by medicine. Dr. Janet Harneke and I still do programs and work together on this very issue. And what we do know is exactly the mathematical science on attitude and how it effectively strengthens and builds the immune system, or negative attitude does the exact opposite. I learned this as a boy without knowing what I was learning. When I was in 2nd grade, one of my good friends, David, his father dropped dead of a heart attack at 34 years old. And it was shocking to him, obviously. This was a dad that was with him every day and would play baseball and football with him. And we watched this little boy, and it scared all of us deeply, go from black hair within a matter of a month to white hair. Oh. And I never knew why I had to go through that very frightening experience as a child. But as I got older, I said, thank you, God, for giving me that gift to see that, to see how negativity and sadness and sorrow can actually physically change who you are.
Wow, that's amazing. And how old was this kid?
Well, I guess in 2nd grade, you're 6 or 7 years old.
Wow. What do you think are some of the reasons why people are so negative in today's world, or down or depressed, or what do you think's going on with some? I mean, I know that's a huge question.
That's pretty simple to answer. If you go back 100 years ago and before, people knew who they were and what their role was. Remember, more than 95% of us were farmers a century ago and before. So there was no such thing as teenage period or advertising or television or cell phones or, wireless. None of this craziness with all the marketing went on. And so when you were growing up, you saw mom and dad. Mom and dad got up every day. They had one question: am I going to survive or not? If the answer was yes, they were going to farm. And so pretty much, and all farming was organic farming. And they were outside in nature, and they were getting sunshine, and we didn't need vitamin D drips. And people were really solid, and mom and dad and grandmom and grandpop and cousins and everyone that you knew were right there. that your fun and security came from family help and from that nuclear family that was so structured. The community were together, that they supported and loved one another. It was almost utopic compared to what we have today. Now, flash forward to the 21st century, parents don't know who they are. They're chasing the dollar rather than chasing their values at this point. The children learn from them. They're being seduced by every avenue you can possibly imagine. Constantly we're being rated and told what we should buy to be hip, how we should dress, what we should eat. Major food corporations, this was revealed by former head of the Food and Drug Administration, David Kessler. The major food industries are now putting opiate chemicals into the food to get you further addicted to them. You better read Dr. Kessler's book, The End to Overeating, to be stunned by that fact. We have polyester clothes, nylon clothes made out of oils that are killing us. We have such high-speed information now. It was evaluated 5 years ago that if a young man or woman at 20 decided what they were going to do the rest of their life, they would have to, at that point, 5 years ago, have 10,000 lives to get all the information they needed on one subject. And with the information age imploding the way it is, we're going to need, by the year 2075, 100,000 lives to get all the information that's available on any given subject then. So we're overwhelmed. It's a different world. We're not exercising. We're not outside. We're stressed. Everything's about money. Your value now comes from what you have, not who you are. And so no wonder we're lost and confused.
Right, and then that sets up a situation where people, I guess, would get jobs and get into debt, and then there comes the stress and the chasing the dollar and all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting with people my whole life. I've counseled 200,000 people. And bottom line is, it's very rare I see somebody, I look them in the eye, and they know who they are and where they're going. Most people are doing jobs they don't like, and marriages they're not happy in, parents, and they don't know how to be parents. This goes on and on. It's just, it's heartbreaking, and it's so simple to change, but you have to be courageous to let go of your preconceived notions.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful because people, I mean, that's a bigger issue than any disease, I think.
It's the disease we're talking about now. So people, rather than jumping off a bridge and committing suicide, overeat chemicals and heavy metals and garbage, and they bring cancer or heart disease or diabetes to themselves.
We are with Dr. Brian Clement, director of the Hippocrates Health Institute, and we have to take a short break. But go onto their website, hippocratesinst.org, and I would suggest signing up for their Doctor. Is it a free magazine that you guys put out? Is that right?
Yes, it's a quarterly magazine on different subjects.
Yeah, we get that, and we pass it around to our friends, and it's a really great thing. It's completely free. I highly suggest you sign up for that. We will be right back with the doctor after this break. Hey guys, if you've been following our work for any length of time, you know that I'm a big fan of raw food. I did a raw food diet actually from 2003 to 2010, 100%, and I loved it. And raw food is a huge part of my diet, and I just love it. And if you're interested in making healthy, really amazing raw food dishes without spending hours and hours in the kitchen, I would highly recommend checking out a program put together by Russell James called the Raw Chef Program. You can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/rawchef. And I have to say, it's absolutely incredible. I have it, and it's got hundreds of hours of video, professionally done video, along with workbooks and PDF files. And he walks you through how to make the most amazing, delicious raw food meals that don't take forever. Everything from mock pizzas and pasta to ice cream to cheese to fluffy bread, if you can imagine it. It's incredible. So I highly recommend you checking it out. It's you can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/rawchef. And I think you are absolutely going to love this program. So check it out now. All right, we are with Dr. Brian Clement of the Hippocrates Health Institute. And Brian, I have a quick question for you, an email here that came in just now. My name is Samantha. I'm 32 years old. I've never been pregnant. My job in the beauty industry, I'm exposed to lots of toxins, and I'm planning on doing some things to cleanse before we try to get pregnant. Yeah, I'm going to do the Juva Cleanse, liquid zeolites, colonics, and clays for cleansing the heavy metals. My question is, how long should should I wait after doing these cleanses before trying to get pregnant? And can zeolites and clay be taken during pregnancy? And also, should I consider other types of cleanses? Well,
number one, you're on the right track. You've talked about the exact type of thing I suggest to people. And my favorite of all things to do here is to help young couples have children. And you're at least conscious enough to realize that your hormones are being altered because you're around chemicals and heavy metals. Globally, every single year, the scientific community creates 2,000 brand new chemicals that nobody really tests in any adequate way, more than there were last year. And boy, this is really the beauty, quote, industry is the worst. You may want to read one of my colleague, Dr. Epstein's book called Toxic Beauty. It's by far the authoritative voice on this, and that would be something for all of you to read, no less you love. Okay. Now, what we see is people who have tried to have babies 5 and 10 years and even longer come here, and by adopting the Hippocrates diet and lifestyle, they have had babies left and right. As a matter of fact, sometimes they say, how do we slow this down? And not so long ago, we actually had pictures of many of the babies, several dozen of people who tried and couldn't have it. So the cleansing is the first part, but then the lifestyle, getting rid of anything but plant-based, eating mostly, if not all, raw food, in greens more than fruits, not high sugars that also whack out your hormones. Sprouts are amazingly effective in helping this. Blue-green, green algae are, bee pollens are, or flower pollens are. These are the things that enhance hormonal activity. And one of the 4 elements within the raw plant-based diet that bring people back to life, prevent disease, premature aging, and help you have babies are hormones in that food. Natural good hormones that your body requires, so it would renovate the body by healthy hormones, oxygen, phytonutrients, and enzymes. So you're on the right track. Knock yourself out, and don't go crazy with the cleansing. Do that for a period of time, and then adopt a lifestyle that's not going to get you dirty.
Okay, and she asks if any of these things can be taken during pregnancy. Zeolites, I've heard about those. I don't know much about zeolites or clay.
Zeolite can be taken during that. I take it every time I'm on a plane. It's not going to hurt the baby in any way at all. Just make sure you maintain exercise, both aerobic stretching, or 3, over-aerobic stretching and weightlifting. And if you want to know more about that, you may want to get on the truthabout.health.com. There's 75 hours of me speaking on different subjects, and this is certainly one we've breached. So you can get on the truthabout.health.com, and it will bring you up to speed even deeper than I can give you in just a minute.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so that's The Truth About Health, right?
Yep.
The Truth About Health. Okay, and typically how long should people wait after they do some cleanses before they have a child? Does it matter if they start trying right after a cleanse? Or?
Let's look at the worst case scenario. Let's somebody who's like I used to be, super obese, smoking cigarettes and dope. In that case, about 6 months. But for a person who was moderately healthy and exercising before, unlike I was, basically 3 months is all you need. The body recovers rapidly, or we'd all had been dead by the time we were 5, I'm sure.
That's true. Yeah. So what are some of the most damaging, do you think, lifestyle habits, and what are some things people can do? Let's say they are living a stressful life and they want to transition, but they can't quit their job today. What are some things they could do to sort of start moving in the right direction with their stress?
That's a really good question to ask. I mean, what most of us do not take is time for ourselves. And if it's only 10 minutes a day that you go out for a walk, or you go into a room quietly and contemplate or meditate or pray, whatever your discipline is, but you just unplug, you'd be shocked at what that did. That 10 minutes adds up to 70 minutes a week. And what you can then look back and say is, I valued my life enough to take a little more than an hour to reflect on who I am, to desensitize, to purge, because we run like a horse all of the time, and we don't even know where the finish line is. And when you do that and take time away to think, you start to have your perspective get cleared up, and you start to recognize what really matters. As you get older, this just naturally occurs. Again, that horse running that we do in our youth, when we get older, we start to realize that your relationships, that your family, that, the sincerity and honesty of integrity, these are the things that really have value that last. Mm-hmm. When people look at your tombstone, they're not going to say the guy was really rich. They never put that on a tombstone. Mm-hmm. But if you were a kind, nice person, because you were a person who was filled up enough with your own love for self that you could now authentically give love to others, the tombstone may say, a wonderful woman, a wonderful man who basically shared a lot. That's what we want to be leaving this world with. Mm. Even those of us who are as healthy as can be, if we make it 100 years, God bless us. Mm. Most of us won't. And the reality is, it's a short life. Don't waste it. Use it on what matters. Get your priorities straight. No matter what age you are listening to me, start to look at the things that the great teachers, the Emersons, the Einsteins, the Martin Luther Kings, the Mandelas, the Mahatma Gandhis did in their life. And when you start to read about them, the Ben Franklins, the Winston Churchills, they all have a common thread, and that's to take that time and to figure out their value systems. Mm-hmm. And once you figure that out, then you don't waste or piss time away, as I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's so much power to that, and I think that people these days don't necessarily take focused intention on this is what I value in my life, and these are my core values, and this is where I'm going, this is the direction I'm doing. I'm going to live my passion. I'm not going to be tossed around like a sailboat in the wind. And I think there's a lot of power to that, where people can...
There is. I mean, look at the way that when a campaign goes on, a political campaign, they realize that people don't have their cores anymore. So they actually... there are people who have a lot of anger are on one side. People who have a lot of apprehension are on the other side. And then they're trying to get that 5 to 10% of people who are wishy-washy in the middle. And they always campaign with negativity because they realize that people are so propelled and so trained to be consumers with guerrilla marketing now that the only way they can market to them to get a vote at this stage is to scare them into it. Sadly, wouldn't it be nice if we had a world where we could just get up and tell the truth? And this is what the politicians say, this is what I'm capable of, here's what I want to do, I need your help, and let's try to do this together. Well, frankly, today the way our silly brains are programmed, they probably lose under those conditions. But if you come in and guerrilla market it the same way the hamburger and the pharmaceutical companies and everyone else does it to you, well, that's what seemingly works for valueless people.
Yeah, because they're easily swayed, and I know what you mean. So you said earlier that, what was the percentage that you said that the amount of people that get traditional treatments, was it for cancer or was it some other disease, end up...
Oh yeah, the number still stands. Is 93% of the people that go the allopathic, the medical route for that, will eventually have cancer, come back and succumb to that, die from it. So it's a horrific track record, and any legitimate oncologist who bothers to read their own journals would know this. And why we're failing is that we destroy the body in the process of killing a few cancer cells. You can't devastate the body with nuclear waste and expect the immune system, which is the only way you're going to heal any disease, to survive it. And so you may have temporary reprieve from a tumor, but then you have this long-term devastation of what's happened with nuclear waste in the body.
Yeah, I just had a friend of mine who I went to school with. She just died last week of colon cancer, and it's just...
And you seem to be a young guy, Justin. It's pretty scary, and you're going to see what I see now. It used to be a lot easier when I started my work because it was people my age and older that came here catastrophically ill. Your government in the United States just put out something that even stunned me about 2 months ago, where they said the number one killer of infants to 5-year-olds, these are little babies, before they're 5, is now cancer, even more than accidents. When you look at the sickest people in America, people below 40 per capita are sicker than people above 65. And brain cancer and leukemia is the number one killer of children other than accidents. Those under 5, it's cancer, but the rest, 5 to 18, it's actually brain and leukemia.
Wow,
pretty scary. And every day I'm sitting here talking to parents, crying and saying, why did my little Mary or why did John get this? It's heart-wrenching.
Why do you think that people in general are getting cancers like this, or just any disease, younger and younger?
Well, number one, we have the most pervasive problem we have is the invisible cesspool we all live in. Most people listening don't realize the insanity that goes on. You know, Fukushima happens, we all go completely nuts and say, oh my God, now we have radiation all over the world, in the water, in the West Coast, and on our food. How many of you realize since the first Gulf War, 1990-91, that they've been putting nuclear waste on all the warheads in Iraq and Afghanistan? And we have one atmosphere, by the way. That doesn't stay in Iraq and Afghanistan. It gets up into the cloud and pours over us all of the time. Do you realize Chernobyl is going to be on this planet for 100,000 years? All of the bombs that were dropped, as little radiation as they had compared to the new bombs, all is still here. And again, 100,000 years they remain. So these are the invisible things. In the United States, as an example, because of liability and profiteering, 50% of the radiation that the average American gets now comes from medical scanning. And back in 1983, it was actually 15%. Wow. So for, again, the profiteering that comes out of this, as well as liability. You know, the doctor wants to check you, so you can't come back and say, I never had that problem. And that's partially the law and the doctors working against one another, the incompetence in medicine, the failure rates we spoke about. And, you know, things like diabetes are even more frightening. But the most frightening disease today is autism. I mean, if you look at the CDC, the Disease Control Center, your government's Disease Control Center, they tell us in 1983 again that 1 out of 10,000 people had autism. It's 1 out of 88 now. And we anticipate by the year 2050, with the statistics the way they're moving, practically every single child that's born will have some level of autism. And when we look at this, you know, we're sort of lethargic, and we sit with our 800 TVs and our clicker and our organic potato chips and our organic sodas and sip our organic teas, and we just think it's always been like this, and it's not. You know, when you have 50% of the population with cancer now versus 100 years ago, 2 or 3% of the population. When you have diabetes type 2, which 2 out of 3 people getting it are people below 16. So these are children diseases that used to take us 50, 60 years of bad living to get. Now it's at 5 and 10 we're getting it because we don't exercise. We sit with laptop computers as children and games in front of us. We watch television and look at screens, the average American child, 7.5 hours a day now. Parents aren't there. They're out chasing the dollar. You know, it's endless craziness, but it all can be corrected. I did it in my life with my 4 children and 3 grandchildren.
Wow. Yeah, it's just a sad thing because I think we're passing on as well, on top of all of that, weaker and weaker genetics, I would imagine.
Oh, no question. I mean, if you look at when I began my work, it used to be that the Austrians, the Germans were relatively strong. They've been gone now for a couple of generations. The only strong white populations are some of the Russians and some of the Poles, but now they have McDonald's and fast food and television and all of that, so they're going to be gone in the next generation. The only remnants of humanity is the way it should be are Africans from Africa, not African Americans, who are some of the sickest people among us. So Africans from Africa still have the genetic pool, and we know a lot genetically about them because they were the original people. But other than this handful of people on this earth, the rest of us are crashing and burning very rapidly.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're not really taught any of the things in school that, you know, we really need to learn in order to live successful lives and not be in debt and take care of our health. And, you know, we're not taught any of that, are we? It's crazy.
Not at all. Look, the healthcare system doesn't even know about health. The religious systems teach you about separation and arrogance and prejudice. You know, it's just outrageous to me. I mean, every system you've been taught to believe in, starting with government downward, is faulty and broken at this stage. And we've got to take our lives back and be walking, talking examples of what people should be. You know, I'm very optimistic. I think humanity is going to come back strong, but we have to get to the point of really waking up from all the fear that's surrounding us now. You know, we have a situation where the easiest way to manipulate you is to scare you. And what I say is the opposite. The easiest way to change you is to support you.
Yeah, it's so true. And people taking control of their lives again, I think, is, the name of the game. I wanted to ask you, too, with all of this, how long do you think, if we really take care of ourselves, even with all of the radiation in the environment and all of that, how long do you think we could live, assuming we do all the right things for our entire life, for example?
Okay, well, we know that. Statistically, there's been a lot of great work done at universities and the work we've done here at Hippocrates for nearly 60 years. With the advent of understanding telomeres, and the chromosome and antioxidants and all of these different things together. Now, I spend most of my time taking the best of all sciences and having a lot of it translated, and with all of the best, putting that as a roadmap for what we do here at Hippocrates. And we recognize that if you took stress out of the equation, you could live an easy 120 years. The average life expectancy of the body should be at least 120 years. The longest living person recorded that we have records for, and there's some who have lived much longer, but we haven't had records for them, is a woman in France that lived 122 years. And she wasn't stereotypically a poster child for what I'm telling you to do, but the one thing she had is an extraordinary positive attitude. Mm-hmm. And that's always the first one. I was in villages, both in the Pakistan-Indian border as well as down in South America, as a nutritional expert in expeditions to look at villages that commonly live above centenarians, 100 years. And I came out and wanted to write about the emotional state of the people more than I did even the diet. Although, yes, the diet was mostly raw and plant-based, mm-hmm. and they exercised like crazy people. But the fact of the matter was, they just were the most pleasant people I've ever been around, laughing all day long, no matter how old they were. And so 120 years, if you get the stress factor out of that. Uh-huh. And we also, my children have a potential to do that. They were brought up from the womb on raw food, plant-based diets. My generation does not. We've been chiseled down a little bit, let's put it that way. Uh-huh. And even with incredibly positive attitudes, our anatomy didn't have that fundamental building that happens in the formative years.
That's amazing. 120, that seems to make sense. And we have to take a short break here, Doctor, but we will be right back. We are with Dr. Brian Clement, and his website is hippocratesinst.org, and sign up for their free magazine. It's really, really great. We'll be right back after this break. Hey guys, hopefully you're enjoying the interview so far. I've been so hot on rebounding lately, and I just love it. I do it at the gym, and people just look at me crazy, but rebounding is one of the most healthy exercises you could ever do. It tones and works out every muscle in your body, even your eyes, and every cell in the body is exercised by the up and down motion of jumping on a mini trampoline. And we feel like we've got the best rebounder on the market. It's called the Bellicon. You can find it at extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. It is got a 5-year warranty on the frame and mat, and there's a 10-day money-back guarantee, so you can just ship it back if you don't like it. But it's really the Rolls-Royce of rebounding, and if you listen to any of the health experts, it's the best way to detoxify your lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system is responsible for, among many things, but it stores poisons and toxins in your body, and it's one of the best exercises that you can do to drain your lymphatic system. And a lot of people do it if they have cancer. They'll rebound with oxygen, and it's one of the most therapeutic and best exercises you could ever do. It works out every single muscle in your body, every single cell in your body. It's just phenomenal. So check it out at extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. Okay, we are with Dr. Brian Clement, having a good time. He is the director of the Hippocrates Health Institute. And Doctor, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the acid and the alkaline balance of the body? I know a lot of people talk about that, and that's a big issue as far as how diseases form and all of that. What are your thoughts these days about that?
Well, of course, in our inception back in the early 1950s, this was a big part of what we understood to help the body recover. But along the way, I think that we've embellished that to a point where we have had some of the quote authorities make some outrageous statements. One that I hear quite often is that if you're alkaline, you will not get disease. Mm-hmm. I wish it was that easy. If you gave everyone a lobotomy, you probably wouldn't have a disease. It's an emotional state, and then how about if I lived personally next to a nuclear power plant that leaked? I'd end up with cancer as alkaline as I am. Now, I will say one thing that's scientifically valid is that as your alkaline alkalize the body, it's more difficult to seed or to create the beginning of a disease. But to make a blatant statement that if you're alkaline enough, you'll never get a disease is an untruth. Do I think that the water is important? I don't think the water in the long run does nearly as much as we think. It's the diet and lifestyle. If you're eating meat, if you're eating dairy food, if you're eating bakery goods, no matter if they're organic and whole grain, if you're eating unripened fruit, these are major acid causers, and all fruit is picked unripened, including organic fruit. And so these are the big culprits in creating acidity. If you're negative, I mean, the Asians 2,500 years ago realized if you have a liver problem, it's because you have anger. If you have a kidney problem, it's because you have worry. And all of this propels adrenaline that becomes acid in the body. And so there's combinations of things. And so just inherently and naturally, the Hippocrates diet and lifestyle make you alkaline. And the other thing I caution people with is don't buy litmus paper and test your urine and saliva when you begin this, because it's going to be all over the place. You may have 9, you may have 5, you may have 4. And some of these, quote, authorities tell you ridiculous things like you have to have 7 or you're going to die. I've actually read that. Scary. Baloney. That's what that is. And so it takes, normally, if you're a pretty bad eater out there, 2 to 3 years to regulate consistently the alkalinity levels, where you have approximately a 7. But not everyone is exactly 7. And there is a norm for some that would be 6-something, and a norm for some that may be closer to 8. But the fact is, don't expect those numbers to really regulate in most people's bodies for years, not days and months after you choose to be a good boy or girl.
And wouldn't it be good to make finer distinctions as far as the alkaline acid balance? Because aren't there differences in blood, urine, and then even inside the organs too? Exactly.
I mean, if you look at a wide cross section, somebody who's serious about this, we would look at blood, we would look at urine, we would look at saliva, and then mathematically figure out the equation of what is norm, or what the central is of that. And you don't do one, you do this several times over a long period, and then you sort of come up with a real number rather than what you come up with a litmus paper.
I see. So you're, the Hippocrates Health Institute is big on sprouts and wheatgrass and algae, not allergies, algae. Why
We're big on those, getting rid of them.
Yeah, getting rid of those.
Yeah, I mean, let me explain this to you. You know, the great news with our founder, Ann Wigmore, is that she was an instinctualist. You know, this woman had no formal education, but she had a bigger instinct than any 10 of us put together. And what she got is that sprouts were good. Now, we, the science guys, came in years later and said, whoa, can you imagine? If you have the best organic garden in the world, where your soil is like 30% organic soil, and you're growing things in your yard, and the best vegetables like collard greens, mustard greens, kale, you pull them out. Do you realize a clover sprout is 10 times more nutritious? But a wheatgrass or a sunflower green sprout or a pea green sprout is literally 30 times more nutritious. So we're going to bother to eat something. That's a great thing to be eating. And by the way, the first life forms on this planet are the core of our diet. Of course, we eat other things, but the core of our diet are blue, green, and green algae. That was the very first life form. It created oxygen on this planet. The second life form were sea vegetables, sea algae. And the third life form was grasses and their related sprouts. So these are the superstars, the supreme foods, as we call them, superior foods that are central to helping people's immune system come back. All of us that live this way very successfully fight the premature aging process. We've watched more people heal catastrophic disease at Hippocrates than any organization in the history of healthcare. Forget natural healthcare. And why? Because we're using these foods, and most important, we're getting people to clean up their slate so that their head is not holding them back, but they think they deserve to live and find their passion. And then you move the body, you exercise, and to expedite this, because some people come here really sick, we have to employ electromagnetic, cold laser, all these other therapies that are futuristic medicine.
Yeah, jeez. So as far as the sprouts, if people are going to go to the store, let's say if someone's listening to this and they want to, they want to grow their sprouts, but let's say they just want to start buying them first, what sprouts are the most powerful do you think they should buy first?
Well, if you could get a sunflower green sprout, that's a little 7-day growing on soil, no matter where you live. In the middle of cold climates and in the wintertime, you can grow this in your house. That little sunflower seed is called the perfect land-based protein. It has all the essential amino acids in it. It also has an extraordinary amount, because it's sunflower, of course, of oil in it. It also has a full cross-section of vitamins and nutrients and minerals in it, depending upon what soil and how rich the soil is. The minerals can be very, very large in that. These are great foods. Wheatgrass, if you start with wheatgrass, you've never done it, start very small. Start with an eighth of an ounce, and then work your way to a quarter of an ounce, a half an ounce. And in the perfect world, you're drinking 2 ounces in the morning and at night. When you're drinking juices, don't go for your favorite ones, the carrot, the beet, the orange, and the mango juice, all high in sugar. What you want is the cucumber, celery, and sprout juice. And even a lot of the bigger national health stores have these and supply them for you, make them right there fresh for you. So we've learned a lot in nearly 60 years, and we know what works and what doesn't work.
Now, can people grow these things in a little bit of ocean water? Does that help uptake the minerals?
Oh, yes. I'm just a major fan of the ocean waters. I think you're going to have an advocate on soon about that. There's 115 elements that make up the periodic or elemental table. The ocean water, they get 96 of those elements out. And I've had friends in Canada, as an example, do a test where they poured a little round circle of the ocean-grown mineral water that is taken from the sea. And the first thing that came up in the spring, they did this, by the way, in March when it was still frozen, was grass, and it was green a month and a half ahead of time and grew 6 inches tall before the other ones began to grow. I mean, this is what happens to the human body, too. You nourish the body, it comes back to life. It becomes, unbelievably strong versus a malnourished body. How we've gotten off track in healthcare not to recognize what you eat is who you physically are.
Yeah.
And it is so bizarre to me that the intellectuals and the academics have lost this completely. Sometimes when I'm out speaking at the universities, it's harder to get through to these thick people than it is to 5-year-old children who instantaneously get it and say, oh, of course.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense to a little kid and to us too, but all our learning gets in the way of that, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the sciences, unfortunately, quite often block and prevent truth.
All right, so now let's think about these sprouts and the wheatgrass and the algae. If someone were to do some of these wheatgrasses, can people grow these at home? I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I strongly advise that. I've written a couple of books. There's other books out there. Ann Wigmore's book that I helped her put together on wheatgrass growing. My book, Living Food for Optimum Health, or Life Force. They actually show you very simply how to grow this. Anyone can grow it. You don't have to be a farmer. And you need very little space. People in very small, post stamp size apartments in major cities are growing this in a window in their house. And I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough. And if that could be the core, it doesn't have to be your whole diet. You can eat vegetables and nuts and seeds and grains and make things out of them and make cookies in a dehydrator without sugar but with stevia and things that don't ferment in your system. Bottom line is, you can have a very full gourmet lifestyle if you want. The fastest growing restaurants for a number of years were raw food vegan restaurants. And as you pointed out, I heard you at the break there, a really wonderful company that makes a lot of this for you. So the busy people listening today can buy this. You don't have an excuse. The only excuse is you don't like yourself enough.
Yeah, and that ties it all the way back to attitude and all of that. But is sprout juice, I've heard that's one of the most powerful things people can take.
Well, can you imagine if I have a food that's 30 times more nutritious? Let's say I'm going to make, which we do here 3 times a day, by the way. We give it to all the guests. And I take a tray, which may have 2,000 or 3,000 little sunflower plants on it, and I juice that, and I make 6 ounces of juice out of that. Now, can you imagine the enormity of energy, of nutrition, of protein, of essential fat? One of the things we hear consistently every week, every year, every decade here is, why aren't I hungry like I used to be? Major overeaters like I used to be that ate from morning till night when you fell into bed. I used to eat in bed sometimes. Are not hungry. Why? Because this heavy amount of nutrition that's so easy to digest. Anyone can digest this, even people who have had impaired digestive tracts. from medicine and treatments and chemotherapy, etc. They can digest this food. It regulates blood sugar. And when you do that, you're not as apt to go out like a maniac and overeat things that in some cases even appear to be healthy. You know, I used to take half gallons of orange juice and drink them at one sitting. Gallons of apple juice, 30-pound watermelons, 5 mangoes, 6 mangoes at a sitting. Why? Because I wasn't being nourished. Although I was eating healthy, quote, foods, I wasn't being nourished enough. Now we're talking about superior nourishing foods. Not the ones that your addictive taste buds like, but the ones that your body needs.
Wow. Yeah, the sprouts and the wheatgrass, the juicing of those things are just so incredibly powerful. And especially if you can grow sprouts too with ocean water, can't you?
Oh, yeah. They grow like a weed. It's just amazing to me when I see them. We use it here. We actually take the ocean grown and we put it, we have major greenhouses, obviously. We grow a lot of this. And we're putting a farm in here as we speak. It's going to be about 3 acres. And bottom line is, we're actually using the ocean grown in all of this process. And the difference between using it and not is like night and day. It's like the switch goes on and goes off.
Wow, that's amazing stuff. So people visit you guys and they can stay for like a week or longer if they'd like?
The program is 21 days. We recognized 26 years ago that it takes 21 days to change an attitude, to change habits, bad habits. But we do have 1 and 2 week programs. People can also come, and they do from all over the world, and get certified to go out and teach this program, the Health Educator Program. And we have people now in 34 different countries around the globe.
Wow.
They can also learn more if you never get to come here, and you have read books on thetruthabout.health.com.
Wow.
That's one that we're proud of, and it doesn't only have me squawking, which is a big part of it, but it also brings real truth to light. What's really going on with the environment today? Yeah. What's going on in the world? What the political issues are that we all should be concerned about? And this is completely free. That my colleague and I decided to make something that is going to be in the future one of the light posts on the internet, but it's going to be completely accessible and free, so you don't have to have money to do this.
We will link that up. That's thetruthabouthealth.com, and we'll put a link on this show page. We have to sign off from naturalnewsradio.com. Thank you to Mr. Mike Adams for having us on his network. Appreciate that. So, Doctor, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts, I should say, about fermented foods? A lot of people talk about how powerful those foods are.
Yeah, proper fermented foods are great. We're going to go against some of the common knowledge out there. We're not so happy about fermented kombucha. We're not happy about that. And most of it has agave syrup or honey in it, ferments, and has 6 to 8% alcohol. That's why people get hooked on it.
Okay.
We're not fans of Rejuvelac, which we used to be many years ago. But when we tested at the University of Massachusetts 36 years ago, we found out that sauerkraut, with its high sulfur and sulforaphane content, is phenomenally good. And to make it really inexpensive and easy and accessible, to get organic cabbage and juice it and just let it sit for 24 hours, you have an extraordinary fermented juice. We did a week's memorial for our founder, Ann Wigmore, and put a monument up in Lithuania. And over there, it's a common food to have sauerkraut. And the different taste in sauerkraut there versus the best organic sauerkraut I have here was night and day. And fermented root vegetables, not the sweet varieties, but the rutabagas that turn up, excellent for you too. When you combine those with probiotics, they can also be excellent.
Did you say that you do a fermented sauerkraut juice of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. You can actually take the cabbage, put it in a proper juicer, not one that spins it around and kills it, but you juice it, slow-turning juicer, then you just sit that out. You put a cover over the top, don't close it, let the air get into it, so put a screen or something over the top, a mesh, let it sit for 24 hours, and you have a highly effective, extremely inexpensive, good probiotic, good fermented food.
Wow, don't the enzymes die, though, if you leave the juice out?
No, the opposite. The enzymes are actually growing, because when the bacteria is in fight, in war, with the nutrients inside of the sauerkraut, or not the sauerkraut, excuse me, the cabbage juice, you're actually having a higher enzymatic activity occur.
Wow, that's interesting. I never thought of that, because I do sauerkraut, but I've never done that before. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty. My favorite is the dark cabbage.
I'm sorry, you were cutting out right there. Your favorite is the dark cabbages?
Yeah, the dark cabbages. They have higher mineral content.
So I bet these things would be great for clearing your arteries and for anti-aging and all of that.
Oh, major anti-aging. You know, what they do is they get... your body is in great part bacteria. When we weigh you, what we're weighing is not what we think we are. It's a lot of bacteria. And to maintain that bacteria, to have good fermentation in there, all food is going to ferment at some level in your body if it's proper food. Not decompose and rot as meat would or as dairy would, but vegetables actually have a small fermentation process that the body inherently encourages. But when you have this extra fermentation, which every great longevity culture has always had through history, whenever they look at who lives the longest, they all have this in their diet. It actually enhances the growth of healthy bacteria, and that affects the immune system directly.
So what kinds of things, as we're wrapping up, what kind of projects are you working on, and what kind of, are you working on any books, doing some speaking? What kinds of things are you working on?
Yeah, so this year I've been on the road 200 days. I was just out your way last weekend and speaking in Los Angeles area. I was just in Orlando the other day at the major health food show, and yelled and screamed at all of them, said, you've got to have some integrity and put some good things in the health store. I spent 2 months this year in Europe. And bottom line is, my newest series of books for the academic community is Food is Medicine. You may want to get my 2 books that came out this year, 2012, Killer Fish, to show you how fish is a killer, not a health food, and Sex, the 7 Ways to Lifelong Sexual Vitality. I've been out around the country in media doing those programs. I'm beginning now my work on killer milk, and we're going to really have the most scientifically valid discussion ever in literature on this subject, how milk and dairy causes every major disease known to man, doesn't help, and how we're the minority. Most of the world does not consume dairy food. And a project that's very dear to me, I'm co-authoring the new biology, that by 2014 we hope to present quantum human biology that's going to hopefully revolutionize our understanding of healthcare, where we show that everything comes down to electrical frequencies. It's not the biology we see, touch, feel, and measure. And that's why we're all failing today, even in the natural area.
Jeez, wow, you're on some cutting-edge research. If people want to look at your website, it is hippocratesinst.org for all kinds of great information, and people can visit you and really get on the path to health. And if anyone has got some kind of sickness or catastrophic illness, I highly recommend people go visit you guys. And thank you, Doctor, for all your amazing work you're doing. It's just so inspiring.
Take care. Be well and have a great holiday, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Talk to you soon. Wow, that was quite a show with Dr. Brian Clement. Man, he's such a great guy, and I've listened to him speak before, and I've really got a lot out of his work and listened to a lot of his videos or watched a lot of his videos. So make sure to visit. If you know anyone who's sick, I would highly recommend sending them there, because this guy's on the cutting edge. So visit him and visit his website. Sign up for his free magazine too, and pass that around. He's got a lot of great stuff in there. If you found value in this show, if you enjoyed it, could you do me a favor? It would really mean a lot to us if you could click like on this show page, extremehealthradio.com/46, and follow us on Facebook and sign up to our newsletter. All of those things will help us. So thank you for listening, and thank you to Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his site. We appreciate that. And we also have a store with lots of great products, blenders and dehydrators, rebounders, and a lot of e-courses on how to do certain things. And so we've got lots of great stuff in our store. So check that out. And we are 100% listener supported. We desperately do not want to charge anyone for these interviews. We want to make it free for everybody. But in order to do that, we need to be able to have the site be sustainable and pay for itself. So if you could donate even just as little as $1, and I thank you to people who have, it's really been helpful. You can donate as little as $1 if you'd like, and that will help us. But if you cannot, just send our site to your friends and help pass the word on to all your loved ones and all of that. So thank you again for listening. If you have any questions for me, just email me, Justin at Extreme Health Radio, or you could call our hotline there and I will get back to you. I want to help you in any way I can. So again, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you